welcome back to another All Heart video. Today I have a fun video in store for you. I have been busy working on my children's spring shelf activities, and I wanted to go ahead and take the time to share those activities with you in celebration of the change in season. So let's go ahead and get started on today's video. So the first thing that you see here is this Crayola Model Magic, and I love being able to work with this material, and I've used it a lot in the past, so I'm very familiar with how it works. But basically it's like a firm type of clay that when you let it air dry, it becomes kind of this spongy, really lightweight material. So I thought that this would be perfect for my children to be able to make butterfly impressions in. And my children just absolutely loved this activity. They were making sure to press firmly on all the little corners, all the little crevices, to make sure that when they lifted the butterfly, it would leave a beautiful impression behind. Now, once we were finished with this, we let it air dry for a couple of hours, and then it was mostly dry, and we were able to paint on top of it. And I just provided as many colors as I could, and I just let them take reign with whatever their little imagination drove them to paint, and they just absolutely love being able to paint this butterfly in all different colors. So now we're moving on to the second activity, and I just placed some potted flowers with the little flower pot on the side. So my children have never actually depotted a plant, so I wanted to show them how to properly do it. But not only that, they're able to really see all of these specific details of this flower, from the petals to the actual flower to the soil and the roots, and it really allows them to really see exactly what goes on underneath these flowers. So it was a fun, really active way of being able to teach them this, and they absolutely enjoyed it. And I know that it gets very, very messy, but who doesn't like to get a little dirt on their hands every once in a while? So my children absolutely love this activity, and who doesn't love flowers for spring? So it was the perfect activity to create for this spring season, and it just added a lot more color into our playroom. So the next thing that we were able to do was paint our flower pot. So I thought that this was just a wonderful way to really personalize this activity even more. So again, I let them paint however they wanted, and it just really brings out a lot of that creative side. And I think it's just so important to really hone in all of that creativity, for them to use their imagination in an artistic way. And all of the art supplies are always readily available for my children to be able to use whenever they want. So I absolutely loved this little activity. So now we are coming into some puzzles. Now my son is working on a spring season puzzle, which has a few more pieces. And for my daughter, I decided to do just these 2-piece puzzles, and I just printed them out, and I just thought they were so beautiful and so vibrant. And I laminated them, and then I cut them in half, and my daughter absolutely loved this puzzle. Now, she's very familiar with puzzles that use the little knobs, but the ones that are kind of freestanding, she has a little bit more difficulty with. So this was the perfect way to introduce her to some of these loose puzzles. So she absolutely loved it, and she was able to figure out every single flower. So I was just very, very proud of her, and she absolutely loved this activity. So if you want to introduce puzzles to children that perhaps have a little bit of a challenge with other types of puzzles, or you just want to get them more interested in puzzles, I definitely suggest that you take the time to make them because they are so easy to make at home. And I know that your kids are really going to love it. And these flower cards were absolutely perfect for spring. This next activity is the perfect practical life activity, and I included everything on a tray. They had their 2 vases, 2 flowers, 2 little pitchers with water, and also a little rag in case they spilled some water. So all they were doing was pouring some water onto their little glass vase, and you could just see how carefully my 2-year-old is pouring this water. She has just gotten so good at being able to pour herself drinks or pour water when she's practicing, and her skills have just definitely improved. So she's pouring her water, and then she's going to be able to place that beautiful rose with a little bit of a stem and leaf, and she's able to place it into her vase. So again, a perfect spring activity, and it just adds a really nice floral arrangement to our playroom. So now we're getting to some of the activities that I had placed on their little shelf, and my daughter practically ran to the butterfly activity because she is just so enamored with butterflies. So I was able to place these cards that identify all of the little objects in the tray, and she was so excited to be able to identify each and every one. And by the end of this activity, she was able to name the little figures and also place them in order. So it's a wonderful activity. It's a very hands-on activity, and it's perfect for them to be able to match and identify all of the different life cycles of different insects. So while my daughter worked with the butterflies, my son ran over to get his little bee activities. Now I have quite a few activities for him, and the first ones are, again, identifying the card with the object. So he's able to place and identify all of the life cycles of a honeybee. And I absolutely love these little objects because, I know that they're not to scale, but that's the perfect thing about them because they're able to really see every single little detail that they wouldn't normally get to see in real life. So it's a perfect way for them to be able to identify all of the life cycles and be able to get a perfect idea of how the life cycle works. So the next activity was identifying different flowers, which again, perfect spring activity. She's able to identify and match the little objects with the little cards. And I love that I was able to choose these types of cards because it actually shows the real depiction of all of these flowers as opposed to like a caricature. So it made it a little bit more challenging for my daughter to be able to identify them, and she really had to pay more close attention to the details of the flower as opposed to just matching the flower because it matches the same color. So as you can see with the ones that had the actual color, she was able to identify a lot faster, but with the flowers that looked a little bit different and the color was slightly off from the object, she had a little bit more difficulty. You can see that she's just trying to match it by the color, but once she realizes that the picture doesn't look the same, then she was able to go back and identify the correct object with the card. So So this was another bee activity that I presented to my son, and it is just him being able to identify the different parts of a bee. So on the side, I did show him the chart with all of the different parts of the bee because, again, this was a new activity for him. So I wanted to include this clip of my daughter cleaning up all of her supplies after she was done working with her little matching flowers and cards, because I get a lot of questions on how my children keep everything so nice and neat, and it really just comes down to making sure that they know that everything has a place. So what is spring without a few rainbows? And we've been lucky enough this past week to see a couple of rainbows near our house. So this is a perfect color sorting activity and color matching activity. So again, perfect for hand and eye coordination and fine motor skills. I just absolutely love this rainbow. So this was another activity that we had on the shelf, and it was just the life cycle of a bean. And again, just being able to identify the different cycles and processes that a plant goes through in order to become a plant. So he's able to match all of the different stages of this life cycle with the cards and the chart. And I also included the little objects because, again, it's just a very hands-on and concrete material for them to be able to feel and see and observe. And there's just so many ways that you're able to use this material. So right now he's just matching it with the cards, all of the different stages from a bean to it growing roots to it growing into germination and a plant, and then finally when that plant produces fruit. So the final activity for the life cycle of a bean was just these cards that had the stages all mixed up. So he's looking and identifying each and every picture to make sure that he knows the life cycle and the order that it goes through. So he's going and he's matching the number one stage with the bean, and then the second stage is it growing a root, and so on and so forth until it becomes a full-on plant. So now we're working on a different bee activity, and I brought out these tiles which are absolutely versatile, and we just love being able to use them for different activities. And I had my son create a honeycomb, and I brought out his little numbered tiles so that we can create some math problems. And as you can see, it's an addition problem. And with the little balls, which he symbolized as honey, he's placing 5 honey balls into the honeycomb. So I wanted to make sure to include these Montessori puzzles because there are so many different ways that you can utilize these materials in order for them to really reinforce the different parts of a flower or a plant, and you can find them in so many different arrangements. So with this flower, the first thing that he has to do is obviously place the flower petals all in their place. It's perfect for their fine motor skills and hand and eye coordination. The second step that he would do is be able to trace all of these different parts, all of the different parts of the flower. And again, it really helps to reinforce the learning of all of these different parts of the flower, from the stem to the petals and so on and so forth. So you can see that again, it really works out that fine motor skills. He is being very careful when he's tracing around all of these figures, and he's perfecting those skills every time he does it. And from here, he's able to label all of the different parts of the flower, again, to reinforce that he learns and memorizes all of the different parts of the flower. So it's just a fun activity for him to be able to do for spring. So while my son worked on the flower, my daughter was also doing an art activity for herself, and it was just recreating a sun using some paint and a fork. And I love being able to teach her to use different tools to be able to paint and create art, because again, that really opens up just another world of creativity for them. So as you can see, she's going into the paint, grabbing a little bit on her fork, and then she's able to easily make the different rays of the sun. So she absolutely loved this activity, and I just thought it was so cute because she just really enjoyed it. And in the end, it really does look like a very bright sun. So these little flower sets were actually a gift that was given to my daughter for Christmas, and we had them stored away because I'm not really one to gravitate towards plastic toys, especially toys that have a lot of little pieces, but my kids are just very good at making sure that everything stays in its place so things don't get lost. And I'm very happy that I held on to this toy because it was the absolute perfect toy for spring. And I love that all of the different pieces are separated, so she's able to look at the stem and the leaf, and then she's able to apply her flower, and it's just the perfect way for her to be able to identify all of the different pieces of a flower to again reinforce that knowledge in a fun and creative way for younger kids. And that is it for our spring activities. I really hope that you enjoyed these, and if you do recreate some of them, make sure to tag us at All Heart Social Media and let us know in the comments which one was your favorite. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and remember to ring that notification bell, and stay tuned as we are going to be doing our Easter Montessori activities very, very soon.